It's time to uncover the secrets of history. Now I'm going to tell you about 10 forgotten survival techniques that no one would use today. Modern technology has made us incredibly capable, but at the same time, surprisingly helpless. We rely on GPS, lighters, and supermarkets, forgetting that for thousands of years, people survived with only a deep understanding of nature. The indigenous peoples of North America were masters of this survival, using skills that seem almost magical today. Their knowledge was not recorded in books. It was woven into their daily lives, their stories, and their connection to the land. They could read tracks on the ground, understand the language of plants, and navigate by the stars the way we read a map today. These were not just tricks, but a whole philosophy of harmonious existence in harsh conditions. Today, we will look at 10 lost survival techniques that modern humans would be unlikely to replicate without long and diligent training. These skills demonstrate the remarkable ingenuity and wisdom of the peoples of the Great Plains, the forests of the Northeast, and the cold subarctic. Watch the video to the end, and you will learn how a deadly poisonous fruit could be turned into a staple food using only river sand and water. I will reveal the most closely guarded secret, how it was possible to cross the endless Great Plains at night without maps or compasses. Modern man will, at best, find the North Star to determine north. But for peoples who lived in constant motion, this was not enough. Their navigation was much more complex and accurate. They perceived the night sky not as a static map, but as a giant clockwork mechanism. The Lakota and Cheyenne tribes did not follow a single star, but the movement of entire constellations around a fixed point. This celestial dial allowed them to determine not only the direction, but also the exact time of night. They knew where a particular constellation should be in the sky at sunset or before dawn. This knowledge was critical for planning long journeys. Moreover, the map of the starry sky changed depending on the time of year. Warriors and hunters memorized which star patterns were visible in spring and which in autumn. This served as a reliable calendar, telling them when it was time to migrate or start harvesting. For example, the position of the Big Dipper, which they saw differently, relative to the North Star at different times of the night, gave them accurate landmarks. They could move in complete darkness while maintaining their set course. This system required many years of continuous observation. It is practically impossible for modern humans to repeat this for several reasons. First, urban light pollution has deprived us of the view of most stars. We simply do not see the detailed picture that they saw. Second, we have lost the habit of constantly observing the sky. We look at screens instead of stars. This skill required complete immersion in the environment. Knowledge of celestial navigation was often passed down through myths and legends. These were not dry instructions, but exciting stories about heroes traveling across the sky. This method of teaching ensured the accuracy of information passed down from generation to generation. Thus, night navigation was not just a trick, but a complex science. It combined astronomy, timekeeping, and deep cultural memory. This skill allowed them to be masters of vast, featureless spaces. We would love to hear your opinion. What do you think about this complex method of spatial orientation? Write about it in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new exciting stories. Are you ready for the shocking truth? Everything you've seen in movies about making fire by rotating a stick between your palms is only half the truth, and the most difficult and ineffective part at that. Indigenous peoples possessed much more advanced technology. It required not so much strength as precise knowledge of materials. The most common and effective method was the fire bow or bow drill. This method allowed for a much higher spindle rotation speed than when using the palms. The device consisted of 4 key components. The first was the bow itself, small and flexible, with a bowstring made of plant fiber. The second was the spindle, or drill, made of hard wood. The third was a hearthboard made of softer wood, such as cedar or poplar. The fourth was a small bearing, or stop made of stone or hard wood, which held the spindle from above. The secret lay in the correct selection of wood. The hearthboard and spindle had to be made of different types of wood to create maximum friction. Both elements had to be completely dry, which in itself was no easy task. The bowstring was wrapped once around the spindle. The stop pressed the spindle against the hearthboard from above. By moving the bow back and forth, the person caused the spindle to rotate at tremendous speed. A special V-shaped notch was made in the hearthboard. It was in this notch that the rapid rotation created fine, charred wood dust. Friction heated this dust until it began to smolder. This smoldering ember was incredibly hot, but it was not yet a flame. It had to be carefully transferred. For this purpose, tinder was prepared, a nest made of the driest material. Crushed dry bark, plant fluff, or dry moss was used as tinder. The smoldering ember was placed in the center of this nest. After that, all that remained was to blow on it carefully but confidently. Oxygen fed the smoldering, and after a few moments, the nest burst into a bright flame. This method allowed fire to be obtained within a minute if dry materials were available. Even with instructions, a modern person would fail dozens of times before finding the right materials. What do you think was the most valuable and rare material for making tinder in a damp forest? Now imagine that you have fire but no food. What if I told you that poisonous fruits were their main salvation? Read the next chapter to learn this secret. Something you've never seen before, how an entire people could feed themselves year-round on something that is considered inedible and even poisonous when raw. We are used to thinking that corn is the staple food of Native Americans. But for many tribes, especially in the forests of the Northeast or in the West, acorns were the main bread. However, raw acorns contain a huge amount of tannins. These are bitter tannins that make them not only unpalatable but harmful to eat. Turning them into food required a complex and time-consuming process. This process is called leaching. It demonstrates a deep knowledge of chemistry gained through experience. Without this skill, entire regions would have been virtually uninhabitable. First, the collected acorns were thoroughly dried. Then they were cleaned of their shells. The kernels were ground into a very fine flour using stone mortars and pestles. This is where the most important part began. The resulting flour could not simply be mixed with water and baked. It had to be washed to remove the tannins. There were 2 main methods for doing this. The first was cold. The flour was poured into woven baskets and lowered into a stream with running water for several days. The second method was faster and more commonly used. The flour was poured in a thin layer into a specially prepared pit in the river sand. Then warm water was poured over the flour repeatedly. The water, passing through the flour and sand, carried away the bitter tannins. The process was repeated until the flour lost its bitter taste. This required a lot of patience and experience. What if I showed you a time machine? This method of obtaining water is older than any civilization, and it worked in the most arid regions. For tribes living on the Great Plains or in desert areas, water was more valuable than any other resource. The ability to find it was equivalent to the ability to survive. Modern man looks for a river or lake, but indigenous peoples knew that water is almost everywhere if you know where to look. They read the landscape like an open book. They knew that certain types of plants could only grow where groundwater came close to the surface. For example, thickets of willow or poplar trees in the dry steppe were a sure sign of a hidden source. They indicated where to dig. Another technique was to look for water in seemingly dry riverbeds. Water often continued to flow beneath a layer of sand. All they had to do was dig a hole at the lowest point of the bend in the riverbed, and it would gradually fill with cool, filtered water. In desert regions, dew was collected early in the morning. It was a laborious but vital process. Dew settled abundantly on the broad leaves of certain plants. It could be collected by gently wiping the leaves or using absorbent materials. Every drop counted. This method required getting up early, before the sun evaporated the moisture. Indigenous peoples also knew how to make improvised filters. They could not boil every drop of water they found. To purify turbid water from suspended solids, they used multi-layer systems. Layers of clean sand, crushed charcoal from a fire, and grass were placed in a woven container or bag. Water passing through such a filter became much cleaner. This did not kill germs, but it made the water drinkable in an emergency. They also knew how to find water in rocks. After rain, water accumulated in natural depressions and could be stored there for weeks. Knowing the location of such stone cisterns was one of the most valuable secrets. Modern people go to the store and buy a skein of synthetic rope. We rarely think about the fact that rope, or cord, was one of humanity's fundamental inventions. For indigenous peoples, it was a universal tool without which it was impossible to build a dwelling, weave a net, or repair equipment. This skill was widespread, from forests to deserts. The secret lay in knowing the right plants. Almost any weed could produce strong fiber if you knew how to process it. Some of the most valuable plants were nettles, fireweed, Ivan tea, and milkweed. The inner layer of the bark of certain trees, such as linden or willow, was also used. Each plant required its own approach. The stems of the plants were harvested at a specific time of year, usually in the fall, when the fibers reached maximum strength. Then they had to be soaked in water. This process, called maceration, helped separate the tough outer part from the soft inner fibers. After soaking, the stems were kneaded and dried. Then the most laborious stage began, separating the clean fibers. They were combed and separated into thin strands. The secret that people today pay thousands for: how to preserve the harvest for a whole year without refrigerators, freezers, or chemical preservatives. For sedentary peoples such as the Iroquois or semi-nomadic plains tribes, survival in winter depended entirely on summer supplies. A mistake in storage meant starvation. They used several highly effective methods based on a deep understanding of physics and biology. The main enemies were moisture and pests. The basis of everything was drying. The peoples of the eastern woods, who grew the three sisters, namely corn, beans, and squash, perfected this process. Corn was dried right on the cob, tied into braids, and hung in well-ventilated areas. Beans were shelled and spread out on mats in the sun until they became hard as rock. The most interesting method involved pumpkins. Pumpkins and squash were cut into long, thin spirals. These strips were hung on wooden frames like garlands, where they dried in the sun and wind. Berries and fruits were also dried. They were either scattered on stones or, more often, mashed into a homogeneous mass. This mass was spread in a thin layer on a mat and dried in the sun, resulting in nutritious fruit cakes. But simply drying them was not enough. The products had to be protected from moisture and rodents for many months. For this purpose, storage pits were used. These were not just holes in the ground. They were complex engineering structures. A deep hole resembling a jug in shape was dug in the dry, well-drained soil. The walls and bottom of the pit were carefully burned with fire to make them hard and dry. Then they were lined with a thick layer of dry grass or bark. This created a waterproof barrier. In the subarctic forests where the Cree and Athabascan peoples lived, winter was the main challenge. Temperatures could drop to extreme lows. The ability to quickly build a warm and reliable shelter out of snow was a matter of life and death. Many people confuse this dwelling with an igloo, which is built from blocks of dense, wind-pressed snow. But in forest areas, the snow is usually loose and fluffy. It is impossible to cut blocks out of it. Therefore, they used a different, more sophisticated technique called a quinsy. This shelter is built not from blocks, but from a single snowdrift. But this snowdrift was man-made. First, a huge pile of loose snow was raked together in deep snow at the chosen location. The pile had to be high, often taller than a person. It was hard work that required a lot of energy. Then came the most important part. This pile of snow was left to rest for several hours. During this time, the snowflakes inside the pile began to bind together, a process known as sintering. As a result, the loose snow turned into a single, solid, and durable mass. It became strong enough to hold its shape. Now it was possible to start building from the inside. A small entrance tunnel was dug on the leeward side. It was always located below the level of the future floor so that warm air would not escape. Once inside the pile, the builder began to rake out the snow. He carefully expanded the interior space, creating a dome-shaped room. A simple trick was used to ensure that the walls were of uniform thickness. Before filling the snowdrift, many sticks of the same length were stuck into it. Stone tools were the basis of the entire material culture of indigenous peoples. To modern man, this seems incredibly primitive. But in the hands of a master, a piece of stone was transformed into a tool that surpassed a modern surgical scalpel in sharpness. This skill, known as knapping, was a true art and a precise science. It required a deep understanding of geology, physics, and incredible coordination. Not everyone could become a master stonemason. It all started with choosing the right material. Only stones with a conchoidal fracture, such as flint, obsidian, or jasper, were used. This meant that when struck, they split along predictable, curved planes, forming sharp edges. The first stage was called the striking technique. The master took a large piece of rock, the core, and struck it with another stone, the striker. The goal was to chip off large, flat flakes, blanks for future tools. This process required precise calculation of the force and angle of the blow. One wrong blow could split the entire blank and ruin hours of work. The craftsman had to read the stone, seeing internal cracks and stresses. When a blank of the desired shape was obtained, the second, more delicate stage began. It is called press retouching or press technique. There were no more blows at this stage. Indigenous peoples had encyclopedic knowledge of botany. The surrounding forest or prairie was not just a collection of trees and grasses to them. It was a living pharmacy full of remedies for maintaining health and well-being. This knowledge was passed down from generation to generation and was the result of thousands of years of observation. They knew exactly which part of the plant to use. They understood when to harvest it and how to prepare it properly. Many modern medicines were created based on this traditional knowledge. The most famous example is willow bark. The peoples of the Northeast used it to make decoctions. They knew that willow bark helped relieve discomfort and calm fever. Today we know that willow contains salicin. This substance is the basis of modern aspirin. Another important plant was yarrow. Its leaves and flowers were crushed and applied to cuts and abrasions. It had astringent properties and helped to stop bleeding. Plantain, which we consider a weed, was used as a natural plaster. Its fresh leaves were crushed and applied to bites or skin irritations. It helped relieve itching and soothe inflammation. For the peoples of the Great Plains, one of the most important plants was echinacea. Its roots and leaves were used to strengthen the body. They chewed the root to relieve throat discomfort. For peoples living in regions with harsh winters, such as the Iroquois or Cree, deep snow was a major obstacle. It paralyzed movement, making it impossible to gather firewood or move camp. The solution to this problem was one of the most ingenious inventions: snowshoes. Snowshoes are essentially a device that distributes a person's weight over a much larger area. This allows them to float on the surface of the snow rather than sink waist deep. It is incredibly difficult to replicate their design without modern materials. It all started with choosing the right wood. A strong but very flexible material was needed, such as ash or birch. The wood was harvested and soaked for a long time or steamed over a fire. The hot, moist wood became pliable. It was shaped into the desired form, usually teardrop or oval. The ends of the frame were securely tied together, and the structure was dried, permanently taking on the desired shape. Then, cross struts were installed inside the frame. They gave the structure rigidity. They also bore the main load when walking. The most difficult part was weaving the mesh or deck. Historically, raw leather straps were often used for this, but given the limitations, it can be said that the strongest cord made of plant fibers was used. It required a skill comparable to weaving a complex fishing net. We have looked at just 10 forgotten skills that were fundamental to the lives of the indigenous peoples of North America. From complex astronomy to chemical food processing, from snow shelter engineering to stone tool making. These skills showed that survival depended not on technology, but on profound knowledge. These methods demonstrate remarkable ingenuity and the ability to adapt to any conditions. They were honed over thousands of years of trial and error. Today, in a world of ready-made solutions, it is difficult for us to even imagine the amount of wisdom that was necessary just to live another day. What other topics related to the lives of Native Americans would you like to see on our channel? Perhaps you are interested in their social structure, their art, or their philosophy? Suggest topics for future videos in the comments, and we will try to cover them. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new research into the past.